Hey folks, so I finally gets back to Berlin, and you see that for last couple of weeks I was actively talking about the network agentic organizations and what we need to make it happen, what we learned from DAO and why DAO doesn't work and all of things. And one of the key components of network agentic organizations for sure it's identity and trust, because without identity you could not address the agents, so it's quite simple. And without trust, all this doesn't make sense. If talking about the identity, I have the separate articles about the agent identity and what it's mean and why it's not just simple identifier, and why identity is more about the capabilities and what agent could do, or maybe more about how agent was built in what kind of environment agent operate. And but it's a topic for separate articles and separate video. I already have something on my YouTube channel. But today we will talk more about, we have the agent promise you to do some functionality, and we could already trust, for example, that this agent belongs to some organization, or we trust the agent. But how to know that this agent do his job quite well? And it's bring us a quite important tool that Vitaly Buterin mentioned a couple of times already, and WorldCoin, for example, tries to do it. It's a social graph. And social graphs actually just depict the interaction between the different agents, between the agents and customers. They could trust each other, and they could give the feedback how good agent are on some certain capabilities with some kind of score, or maybe rough text feedback and all of that. So it's a good old reputation systems baked by the social interaction. So when you interact, and you just accumulate some kind of social score. And the core of this social graph, and it's what Vitaly Buterin tried to talk for a long time, and what we try to makes happen in the Web3 for a long period of time. It's this social graph. But I want to talk about some different angle of the social graphs. So you know that I was working for a long time on personal knowledge and personal and private AI assistant, and in a personal space we have this concept of the personal knowledge graphs, where the central of the graph actually is the user, and everything connected to the user, and somehow the user define what's matter to him. And if you try to apply the concept of the personal graphs to the social graph, it means that instead of building one big addressable social graph, you build your own social graph. And somehow you create personalized layers, right? So your graph matter to you. You decide what kind of information you want to share with others, but practically you manage the graph, you build it, you're responsible for these relations, and it belongs to you. And in this case, we could talk about quite interesting concept of the layered social graphs. And layered social graphs is mean that you cluster the graph with the different layers. It means that usually the social layered graphs, they expect that every layer could be a different social network or communication channel or something like that, that you could have the layer of the Facebook and separate layer of the Instagram, and another layer of the emails, and another layer of some another social medias. But here we talk that you see your personal graph as a layer. So you have your own perspective on the social interaction, and we see it as a layer. You could also cluster inside this layer different layers like professional, personal, and all other things interactions. But the main idea of these layers that they just have the different types of edges for the same nodes. And in most simple version of the multi-layered graph, we believe that one node could belongs to the different layers simultaneously. But we could actually drive this architecture and decide what we want to do. But my main idea that he tries to glue the decentralized personal social graph to one bigger family if needed via the layers, and these layers could contain not just different kind of edges, but different kind of meta information for the single nodes. So the biggest challenge in this case actually is how to make the nodes in every personal social graph mappable and interactable. How we could say that Volodya in Andrew's personal social graph is the same Volodya in a Alex personal social graph, if they the same Volodyas or the different one. And it's a big topic of the mapping and the global identities and all other things. Should we have the global identity, or we could be effective with the local one? And if we effective with the local one, how to do the entity mapping and entity name recognition and all other things. So it's quite interesting topic. But the main idea that every agent could form the personal social graph, and every person could form the swarm of the agents that this person working track the work relations, personal relations actually, and form this multi-layered hierarchical layers social graphs. And it's not a big topic. You already have quite good research on multi-layered networks and multi-layered graphs. But as usual in graphs, you could find the layered graphs that talking about something else. I have a separate article about this. But here we mean that we really form some kind of layers that could be seen as hyper edges, or could be seen as subgraphs if we try to model them. That actually behave like multi-layered, multicast complex network of networks. And it's quite an interesting research topic, and it's require slightly different databases to model it. But the main benefit of these personal social layered graphs are actually that the ownership of the personal graph is on the user side, and user define what portion of this decentralized graph they really wants to expose to the public. And maybe you could stay pseudo-anonymous or fully private. So it's the big question of the ethical AI and privacy and all the things. How to minimize the disclosure of the necessary information. Maybe you don't want to share all your social interactions publicly, and maybe you want to cluster them, and the layers give us the possibility to do this clusters. So I really believe in a combination of graphs and layers and layered graphs. So if you keen to hear more and know more about this topic, let me know. We should talk. See you next time. Choose.